All signs point to this, as one key player for the St. Louis Blues is heading into his final year of his contract. Doug Armstrong has a huge decision to make with his future on the team, but not only that, we get an update on a free agent that has been locked to the Blues that already has ties within the organization and could be a sneaky good ad. We're going to break down everything on this contract extension that you need to know, and so much on a prospect in this Blues system that they can sign. We're going to break down all this and more later on this episode. Before we get into that, if you're part of the 74% watching this and you haven't hit that sub button yet, make sure to go down and hit it. It's completely free. It helps us out a ton, and in return, we'll give you daily updates on the St. Louis Blues, and you're not going to want to miss any of this content in this crazy offseason. But with that, Darius, let's just go straight into the first topic today, where we do know the St. Louis Blues have been filling out and kind of changing up their blue line going in, adding Mayu to it. Tucker set to join this team with Letty being shipped out. This is a team that has one key player in Philip Broberg that is heading into the final year of his contract on this Blues team. And there's a lot to look at with this contract if the Blues should do it, and exactly why this deal would be perfect. But going into it, we know right now on the final year, joining this team after a colossal mess up from the Edmonton Oilers, letting him go on an offer sheet. What is your thoughts on Philip Broberg with this Blues organization, and how key do you think he is for the future of this team before we get into the exact number that he could be asking for?
Well, like you mentioned, great work last summer from Doug Armstrong, getting this player on an offer sheet, and a top 10 mistake of all time from the Edmonton Oilers letting him go. But he's a fantastic player, and we saw it last season. I mean, he was slowly progressing and taking steps when he was with the Edmonton Oilers. As you can see here, he was kind of being yo-yoed back and forth, but this is an NHL player, and he showed it last year with the St. Louis Blues. And I mean, you can see it with obviously his statistics on, the regular statistics. We all look, obviously goals and assists and all those things. But when you look deeper into the advanced analytics, this is one of the best defensemen in the entire league, like arguably a top 10 defenseman in the league, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. So he's going to get a healthy contract extension, that's for sure. The Blues really have to figure out, and this is going to be a large task for Doug Armstrong, because he's got to figure it out in his final year before handing off the reins to Alex Steen. He's got to put Steen in a good position here. So he's got to make sure that this contract makes sense, because, again, Broberg is going to be paid handsomely. He's a great two-way defenseman, smooth skater, all of these things. He's working on some of his weaknesses as well. Like, he looked a lot better last year and into the playoffs. Like, he looks like he's going to be, he already is an everyday NHLer, but it looks like he's going to be a star, one of the best defensemen in the league. And I feel like a lot of people expected that. But again, if you look at the advanced analytics here, absolutely insane. In terms of impact rate, an 89 rating. And if you look at his JFresh chart too, out there on Twitter and whatnot, 92nd percentile for offense from a defenseman, which is like absolutely absurd, especially for a guy his age. So he's continuing to score highlight reel goals. He's getting better defensively too. I say getting better. He's a great two-way defenseman. Like, he's equally good, I think, on both ends of the ice. So he's continuing to iron out, weaknesses, all of these things that I've mentioned. So he's going to get a healthy raise. And I think for the Blues, like, you would ideally want it to be long term, but we know the way the salary cap is going and players are wanting to take shorter term deals. So hopefully Doug gets it done long term, because this is a player that I think is here for the long haul with the St. Louis Blues.
And I mean, such a young age, so 24 years old, but going into Scotiabank, and they've been pretty bang on with a lot of these projections. They have Broberg projected at a $7.349 million contract on a 5-year deal. The longer you go, it's going to cost more money. I can't see the Blues doing a bridge deal 25, not 24, that's my bad, but 29 points, progressing. And it's only a matter of time before we see Broberg. Yes, Cam Fowler's been outstanding, but his age is eventually going to catch up, and Broberg will slide in as that top defensive and two-way defenseman on this Blues team. I think this is a very good contract if you can lock him up. The cap is going to continuously raise by 10 million. You're eventually going to get to 115 million salary cap, and the percentage of this is going to drop a lot. Right now, being 7% of the cap, that number is going to continuously go down year after year. You can see the comparables on the right side as well. I think Broberg's better than everyone over there at the moment. And the biggest thing is, when looking at it, he was not named in the top 10 defensemen under 25, which is ridiculous. But still, everything is going up year after year. The offense, the defense, his finishing, the impact. It's only a matter of time before the rest of the NHL finally sees how Broberg is But going back to the contract years, would you be fine with doing a 5-year deal on basically at $7.5 million to lock Broberg up with this team for what feels like would be majority of his career?
I think even if you want to go to the $8 million range or somewhere in there, but it's longer term, that could make a lot of sense for the team too. Of course, it's going to make sense for the team, but for the player, right? That's the one thing that you got to keep in mind. A lot of players and agents right now recognize that they probably want a 4 or 5 year deal so they can cash in again before, it's time to retire, basically, right? Like they want to cash in by the time they're 30, 31, one last time before, again, it is time to retire. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he ends up getting on a contract or what the preliminary talks look like. You brought up a good point, I think a couple of videos ago, in terms of, we got to start looking at cap hits and all of these things in terms of percentages against the cap for each team and what a player makes against the cap rather than what is a $9 million player, what is an $8 million player, because it's going to change. And our thought process around, depth players is about to change as well, because they're going to be making more, but the same amount of percentage against the cap is what I'm trying to say. So I think Broberg at like 7% for a guy who can probably be a top defenseman, will probably, by the time he's 30, let's say, take over that spot that Fowler has right now. I think that makes a lot of sense for this team. So try to lock him up long term. We're curious about what you have to say in the comments as well. So let us know down below, because, it's an interesting one. They have a lot of time, like no need to panic just yet, but I think you do want to get this done, and there's no real reason to move off of this player or let it get to a situation where it heads into next offseason. But, you do have time, use it accordingly and try and get this player locked up. But, even if you have to go a little bit higher, $9 million maybe, right? And I know a lot of people would freak out about that, but look at a guy like Darnell Nurse on the team where he came from, making $9 million. Who would you rather have right now for that cap hit with the cap going up? I'm taking Broberg, right? So, especially the age and, his development, all of those things considered. So it's an interesting one, but I think ultimately it's going to come with a hefty price tag, but that's okay for the player that he's turning into.
And I think the biggest thing is, Blues fans, the team's in a very good position. If you actually want to do a breakdown on the extension for Cam Fowler, we can do that as well. We love talking Blues. We love doing this content. So go down and leave a comment on the Broberg stuff and on Cam Fowler if you want us to do a video. But this really segues in perfectly into the next topic, where we do know, that's also how fast Broberg is. But the biggest thing is, going into, we've seen that his brother Marcus Broberg was invited to the camp just a few weeks ago. We've seen him stand out in this as well. We have this situation where Doug Armstrong can go in, make a signing, and bring in Marcus Broberg to join Springfield in their quest to winning a Calder Cup, and could also develop with his team. We can just touch on this briefly. What is your thoughts on Marcus Broberg? We've seen him stand out in camp. Teams are wondering, or reporters are wondering, if he's going to end up signing, and St. Louis could be one of the teams. Would you be happy bringing in Philip Broberg's brother if he can even turn into half the player he is?
Yeah, I don't see there's no harm in this at all. And I liken it to another situation in the league where Alex Nylander, who's kind of bounced around teams, who was a former first round pick, went to the Toronto Marlies, and he was around his brother and living with his brother, and he was kind of put in a happy place, and he had a fantastic season in the AHL. Yes, it wasn't in the NHL, but in the AHL, and he's actually, looked pretty good. So I liken it to that, where maybe you bring in Marcus, he, is around his brother, the same organization at least, and he can kind of bounce off of a player like that, have a training camp together, stuff like that, because, he is 21, and I do think that, prospects shouldn't really be labeled prospects if you're like 22, let's say, at that point. So he is headed towards that territory, at least personally. That's my thought. Let me know how you feel in the comments, but he is headed towards that territory where it's like, all right, like some of these numbers are not really jumping off the page at me. So it could be an interesting ad. I think there's no harm in it, especially just to play in the AHL. I'm not saying, sign to an NHL contract or anything like that, but just having him like closer to his brother in the same organization, have them, go through a training camp together. Maybe he can surprise in the AHL, and then you never know. He's still relatively young. He's not Broberg. He's only 21. So, well, he is Broberg, actually. He's not Philip Broberg. He is only 21. So still some time there, but he is creeping up in age in terms of what I don't really classify as a prospect. So interesting idea, but we'll see if they ultimately pull the trigger on that.
And Blues fan, what's your thoughts on all this? What's your thoughts on Philip Broberg and his possible extension going into next season? What are your thoughts on them signing Broberg, Marcus Broberg? There's a lot of Brobergs. Get a third one, and it would be kind of fun with this. But what's your guys' thoughts on this? Go down and leave a comment down below. Let us know your favorite Blues player. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Give a rating on how bad the Oilers messed up on letting Dylan Holloway and Broberg walk into this team and looking like future stars? Let us know all this down below. While you're down there, leave a like, subscribe, share this with your friends. We'll be back with another video, so keep your eye out for that. But I've been your host, Mark, with my co-host, Darius, and take care.